Hello and welcome to the Philippines. In this video, I'm going to cover some Philippine news. I'm going to cover a little bit about some travel news, a little bit about different travel apps that are being discussed and used here in the Philippines. A little bit about living in the Philippines. What's it like now? Different areas are starting to open up more. Other places are locking down, getting more strict. Going to mention a little bit about properties in the Philippines as I've been investigating and exploring more information about properties. Sometime in the next week or two, I hope to put up a video dedicated to properties. But anyway, in the meantime, we'll touch on it here. Now, this is a tricycle ride, and please come along and stay with me. Going from the Gaisano Grand Mall, Lapu Lapu. I just came out of Collinwood subdivision, and I'm going to look at another house property down in the south part of Mactan Island, which is Cordova. And anyway, I was going to get a hobble, a motorbike taxi, because we were running late, but there weren't any right available right there, so we jumped in this Tricycle, and he quoted us a price. I think my partner agreed to 100 pesos, $2 US, and I paid him more than that in the end because it was quite a distance and over some rough roads. Anyway, kind of a open area back there people use as a park. It seems a lot of people back in there. Tricycles, these tricycles and pedicabs, or what is called tricycads, a bicycle with a cart on the side, are more common in many parts of Mactan Island than you see over in the Cebu metro area. They're illegal in some areas, some streets. And this condominium coming up here, Sultana. I've done a video there, but I have not uploaded it. I need to get some additional video there before I upload that information. Somebody asked me about that the other day. And this is the road. If you come off the two-lane bridge, coming from Mandaue City, Cebu City, the older two-lane bridge, and you just continue straight, this is where it takes you. It takes you pretty much right over to the east side of Mactan Island, to where the resorts and beaches are. Now, I had asked previously, I often tell them I want to go up here and I want to take a right at the crossing. There's a crossing up here that is familiar to many people. And the crossing is the same as an intersection, but this is the crossing. It's a main crossing. Two main roads, this road and another main road, intersect. I've made the mistake a couple times coming across a bridge in a taxi and asking the taxi driver, take a right at the crossing. And for them, a crossing means intersection. So when we came to the first intersection, he wanted to take a right. And I said, no, straight. Anyway, part of here you have an elementary school, I believe. And I believe these schools are not, most of them are not air conditioned. I think when I was in my early grades, I don't think our elementary schools in the U.S. were air conditioned either. Anyway, we're coming up to this. Anyway, first, let me get back to the news here. First of all, just very recently, there had been a 5.8 earthquake in Mindoro, which is just south of the metro Manila area. And the map that I use, one of them I use, Last Quake, and it had a lot of people reporting feeling it up through the Manila area. Some of you live up there, Batangas, the Batangas area, north. Most of the people who felt it were north of Mindoro, the island just south of that area. And a couple of years ago, they had quite a bunch of earthquakes, a swarm of smaller earthquakes in that general area. Anyway, got a bit of a market here once we turned right at that crossing. A lot more people riding bicycles because still there is a bit of a lack of public transportation, so more and more people have gotten bicycles. There are a few roads. They're trying to put in some bike lanes, but as you can see, there's very little space to add additional lanes. There isn't even enough space for the motorbikes, the tricycles, and the four-wheel vehicles. So it gets to be a bit of a challenge. More accidents. I'm seeing more accidents, bicycles, motorbikes, cars. Anyway, anybody knows about anything else that has felt that earthquake, please leave some comments. And while you're in the going to the comments, if you can hit that like button, that sure helps the algorithms, helps promote the channel. Another thing I wanted to mention is that there are a couple of passes. You've all heard about vaccine passes and tracking passes. If you're coming into an airport in the Philippines, you need to have the TRAZE app, T-R-A-Z-E app, and that's required there. There are a couple other apps. I think there are a couple municipalities that have their own apps. There is the Stay Safe app, which some areas are pushing, and then there is the S-Pass app that looks like it's going to win out in the end over the other passes, but we won't know until we know. The S-Pass website apparently has a list of restricted and open areas that you can travel to, so if that is actually up to date, that would be an advantage there. We really don't know what the requirements are there, or what's going to happen in the future. If like myself, I'm sure that many months ago I had this virus many months ago, and if I have the antibodies, is that the equivalent of having a vaccine? I've got a video on my list to watch about T-cell immunity is better than the antibody immunity, and I'm going to watch that video anyway. Back during SARS-CoV-1, it was found that the antibodies would last up to a year, and then the T-cell immunity cells would last even up to 10 years. So there's a lot they don't know still about this present situation. And I have to be careful what I say, because there's a lot of the Facebook, the YouTubes, the Googles have been doing an awful lot of censoring of the scientific and medical discussion about the present situation. If you're not speaking the government line, the WHO line, the CDC line, they're quick to shut you down, demonetize you. Anyway, so you have to be careful what we talk about. There are a number of vaccines coming into the Philippines, but not nearly enough for those who want vaccines. There is, like many countries around the world, there is some resistance upon the part of many. The reports of side effects. There are several doctors in the Philippines pushing and using effectively ivermectin, a effective, cheap and available drug that's been used almost 40 years. Very safe, possibly safer than aspirin even. Been used for parasites. People who drink dirty water get parasites. My sister gives it to horses for deworming. There's one country who actually, because they couldn't get the government to okay ivermectin for this virus, they did a deworming campaign for the population, and that was how they got ivermectin into. And there's a congressman here saying that he might promote deworming campaign here in the Philippines. There is the FDA, the local FDA, and others pushing back against that. There are a couple of companies in the Philippines who have applied for for authorization to make that for human consumption. So we'll see what happens in the future. There is information online that has not been censored yet. If you're interested, FLCCC site online is a good one website to check out. They're pushing it. They've done a presentation with the Philippine Congress as well as the U.S. Congress, and they're involved with doctors and scientists all over the world trying to push that. Anyway, that could help open up the world, I think, if they would put that out. Of course, it's cheap, so that's probably the problem. Anyway, on talking about properties, at the present time, millions of foreigners have gone back to their countries during this past year, and so there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of properties sitting vacant. Now, those are in different categories. Some of these properties were never meant to be rented out. I come across one the other day. Lady lived in Australia, nurse, and Filipino nurse, and she had never rented out her property, but she was considering doing that. And there were a couple issues with the property we couldn't agree on, so I didn't rent that. But anyway, there are people who have never rented their property, who are thinking about renting their property. There are people who are still trying to get pre-pandemic prices for their properties, sales or rentals. I've even seen some people even raise their rent. Maybe it was 30,000 a month. They've raised it to 35. I think thinking that, well, I can negotiate and drop it back down to what I really want. But what you're finding in Manila, and that's most of the information I read is about Manila, but what you're finding is that my friend in Thailand is saying the same thing. Rents have been reduced 40 to 50% many places, and I've come across many places where they're still asking for the higher dollar. But keep in mind that for many years, 7 years plus, prices have been rising. Sales and rental prices have been rising in the Philippines with the demand. Many companies, people coming to the Philippines. And I think that prices will be a bit depressed probably for another year. It's just a matter of, if you're looking for the lowest price, you seek out those opportunities. On the other hand, as far as the buyers and the renters, many of you want something specific in a specific area, and you've got the budget, you can afford to pay the asking price, and that's the other side of the equation. If you find the nice place that you want in the nice area that you want, and the price is 30 when maybe you would like to pay 20,000 pesos a month for it, if you've got the budget, and that's what you want, well, you're willing to pay that. So you've got lots of different angles to that property. But anyway, I do want to mention, and I'll be doing another video, JRC, the visa consultancy. Many of you folks know about, many of you have used. They also have a realty division, and they're familiar with all the pitfalls that especially foreigners can fall into. So they are there to help with that information as well. Going on to a little bit of a logistics living here in the Philippines, specifically Cebu City, Cebu Province. We're allowed pretty much to travel Cebu Province, Cebu Island, Bantayan Island, Malapascua, Camotes, without having any special tests, PRC tests. Now, if you're coming from outside of Cebu Province, I think coming into Cebu City, you're still supposed to have the PCR test coming into Cebu City. How they police that, I don't know. If you fly into Cebu City, they can police it there. You're required to take those tests and have a hotel reservation.
Hey.
If you're coming in on a ferry I have heard, like Lapu Lapu, Mayor Chan over there, he said that he wanted to set up the help desk at the ferry terminals again to help manage that situation. Now, I don't know if they're there or not. This is a evolving, changing situation, which makes it confusing as well, because from day to day, from week to week, it's difficult to know, because each government agency, each LGU, local government unit, can make up their own rules. Every province, federal government can have one rule. Every province, every barangay, every village, every town can set their own requirements. Baguio City had opened up to some tourism a while back, and then they locked down not so long ago, and now they're just starting to open up a bit again. So the different areas of the Philippines are being different rules, different enforcement strategies. Here in Cebu City, they've gotten more strict about, in fact, like landers and SNR. Most people, when they go in the mall, to go in a lot of places, you have to have your face mask on and your face shield down. But 80% of the people put their face shield back up. They're not optically correct. They can even make you dizzy. I think it can be argued they're actually dangerous. Do they do any good? That's a discussion. I don't want to get banned here, so I got to be careful what I say. If I were king, and I should be king. Anyway, interesting ride through once you get off the main roads here. Friend over on Panay Island, up in the north, Panay Island, Rojas area. He said they just started enforcing. Security guard the other day going into a mall that he's been going to for over a couple of years, I think. Security guards asked him his age. He said 64, and he didn't believe him. He asked the people behind him who were part of his group, how old is he? And they said 64, so they let him in. But there's some areas I've never been questioned. There's only a couple times at SNR, I think, that I was questioned about my age. They wanted to see my ID, but they still let me in. And there are so anyway, the rules are changing. Sometimes they're more lenient. We still have checkpoints out. We have the checkpoint stations out. There may be a couple PNP, Philippine police, sitting there, but for the most part, they're not really checking anybody. There is a push to check motorbikes, because a lot of these motorbike drivers, owners, do not have a license or they do not have up-to-date registration. Part of the problem is because a lot of these people don't have jobs anymore, don't have any income to buy that. Part of the reason is because a lot of these government agencies have a big backlog because they've been shut down or on a skeletal crew for much of the last year. So the blame goes around. But anyway, they're impounding vehicles left and right, I guess. I do carry a quarantine pass I get from the security guard when I want to go out to go take care of business, and nobody's asked for that in quite some time. There's a risk in even saying that if the wrong person hears that and makes a statement that, hey, you need to start checking quarantine passes again. The alcohol ban that Cebu City had in effect came off a couple days ago. The bars are now allowed to open and serve drinks. They're limited to like 50% occupancy, something like that. We went a little too far here. So I was at one the other night, and a couple of police came by in their vehicle, came over, and we're talking to the guy about, we're sitting outside, and they said, everybody's too close, and well, he was standing too close to several people while he was discussing that as well. So, fact of the matter is, and I hate to even say this, fact of the matter is there's very little social distancing anywhere you go. At a bank, they will have chairs set outside for you to wait spaced out. But there really is, and even back over a year ago, last April 2020, there was a top doctor in the Philippines stated that much of the Philippines probably had herd immunity at that time, because you can see how you've got 115 million people. Drop 100 million people in the state, province, country that you're living in, and try to social distance. You know, these people live in very dense houses and housing complexes. I heard a doctor the other day suggest that the USA probably was very close to herd immunity as well. So, you know, there's a lot of room for opinions there. So life goes on. I find the Filipino people still very friendly and helpful. There's a lot more homeless people. There's a lot more, much more poor people all over the world, not just here. And so it's a rough time. The economy needs an influx, needs business. I think it's going to. Thailand said they might open up unless things change in October. So now you're looking out, and that's limited to just vaccinated or tested people. So I think you're looking at late this year, sometime next year, for most of the world to open up. Anyway, life must go on. Some places easier than others. This is the house we're going to look at. Way out here, much further than I thought. But anyway, interesting place. I'll put up a video of that house shortly, in the next few days. Anyway, thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.